Rudy Giuliani this week indicted on the RICO charges that he used to bring against others. We are joined now by the former Republican Attorney General of the state of Georgia, Sam Olens. Thanks for joining me.
Good evening, sir.
We have spoken, but not since these charges actually came down. How do you assess the strength of this case in an area of law that you know well, of Georgia law, and the way specifically RICO is deployed?
Well, clearly the case is much more favorable for the prosecutor when you add the RICO count. It provides predicate acts. It provides a series of acts of circumstances, which clearly most defense lawyers don't want. They would prefer not to have a RICO count as part of the prosecution. It's very detailed. They spent an awful lot of time. I think many of us did not expect so much energy on Nevada, Michigan, Arizona, other states within the context, but it's a strong document.
And Sam, you know, there are people who might not know a lot about what the criminal exposure is. There are people who were sort of pulled into some of this. But I just showed Giuliani, who's not only a lawyer, but a former prosecutor who used RICO. I showed other lawyers. We've seen other lawyers swept up in it. And as you and I know, the people who do know about RICO tend to be prosecutors and lawyers and people familiar with criminal activity, for however they got familiar with it. You maybe know that there's a song called RICO where Drake says, everyone's home for the summer, let's not do nothing illegal, we might just get hit with the RICO. So how is it in your view that's a statute that these lawyers should know and that frankly many other people familiar with this world know seems to have caught some of these defendants by surprise if they've exposed themselves?
So I don't think it was a surprise to many of us that it was initially predicated on the RICO statute in Georgia. I think the level of offenses, over 40, I think the number of co-indictees, 18 in addition to the president, that was a surprise. The choice of who was indicted and who were not. You clearly expected Rudy Giuliani, for instance. Some of the other defendants are surprises, but clearly it was part of being able to show the pattern of the criminal enterprise. There's no surprise that there's a lot of attention to Coffee County, where actions intentionally occurred to breach data on the voting machines. Once again, you know, no surprise.
Final question, given, again, your knowledge as the former Attorney General of Georgia, efforts by defendant Trump or Meadows to remove the case into federal court. How do you view that, and do you think they would be likely to prevail?
So they tried this in the Alvin Bragg case, but of course with much different facts, and the former president lost that motion. I expect that in addition to Mark Meadows, the president, and maybe one or two other defendants will similarly move to remove the case to federal court. The problem with that is the statute is based on not interfering with the acts of the federal government. The argument by the prosecutor in this case will be that the acts of the former president, his chief of staff, folks at DOJ were not in furtherance of the federal government, but frankly in contravention of federal and state law. So the argument would be made, this indictment relates to violations of state law, and it would be improper to remove the case to federal court.